Well, good morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Jason Mikell alongside our executive producer, Terry Eliasen. We got some activity going on down in the Caribbean we have to talk to you about.
Yeah, we sure do. Basically, a Hurricane Melissa making landfall right now as we speak. That northern eye wall coming ashore in western Jamaica as one of the most powerful hurricanes in the history of the Atlantic. So just going to be a devastating day down there in parts of Jamaica.
You know, it's been very interesting, Terry, seeing some of the reports that started to be gathered over the past couple days or so. I remember last Thursday, we were talking about that storm system possibly intensifying to a Category 1, 2 at the top notch there. Now we're talking about a Category 5 storm. This is going to be highly impactful for the Caribbean, not only just the western side, as you can see there, of Jamaica, but also the eastern side as well. That landfall being somewhere between Black River and also Mandeville, but it looks like it's going to be targeting the Black River.
Yeah, and look how well defined that eye wall is. I mean, this is
incredible.
You don't see that every day. It's about a 10 nautical mile width. Just almost a perfect concentric eye wall. We saw yesterday, you could literally see the ocean floor right through it. That's just how sort of amazingly clear and concentric it was. And you can see here's the visible satellite imagery. You can see that eye wall just about to come to shore, although it looks like in the last couple of frames it's sort of getting obscured a little bit, which is probably a sign of it, again, just coming ashore and perhaps starting to weaken just ever so slightly, or perhaps just going through an eye wall recycling phase. But anyone in the path, on the direct path, certainly on that eastern side, of the eye wall, going to see winds up to 180, 185 miles an hour.
That's some of the things that I think concerns me when you're talking about these tropical systems. That front right quadrant, when you're talking about severe weather happening, strong wind gusts, tornadic sort of activity. You can see where that plane is flying in. That is the hurricane hunters there doing some reconnaissance. I believe they go out of my neck of the woods there down in Mississippi. I think Biloxi, perhaps even Keesler Air Force Base.
Yeah, in fact, this is an odd one. I saw they took off out of Curacao. So I'm not sure. My guess is that they're probably running separate missions. You know, they're coming out of, like you said, Mississippi and Tampa and Curacao. But I saw some pictures yesterday of like them flying into through the eye wall, and just like this stadium effect of the clouds reaching up as high as you can see. I can't imagine flying into a Category 5 storm like this.
It's crazy. There's been videos online. I remember the Weather Center, they were doing some of those reconnaissance missions, and you can see some of the hurricane hunters. They're like strapped in on both sides and just bumping around there. You have in that center eye wall subsiding air, which is like stabilizing air right in the center. And right around the center are the strongest winds, friends, okay? And from the latest advisory from our friends down at the National Hurricane Center in Miami, we're talking 175, 80 plus miles per hour gusts right around that eye wall. And as Terry was just mentioning, those hurricane force winds extend tens of miles outside of the eye. So some areas on Jamaica may actually have pretty calm, clear skies once that center passes over them, but on the backside of that, it's going to be just rocking.
That's right. So interestingly enough, this thing was, like you mentioned, it was sort of a meddling tropical storm for days and days and days last weekend, and then all of a sudden, about 48, 60 hours ago, it just ramped up.
Just blew up.
It blew up and went from a tropical storm to a Cat 1 to a Cat 5 in about 24 hours. Just underwent extreme cyclogenesis, and here we are. It's peaking. Again, unfortunately, peaking as it's making landfall. This is the strongest it's been yet right now here as it's making landfall. And the track is going to, thankfully it's going to start to increase its forward speeds. It's crawling right now, but over the next 24 hours, it'll start to increase its speed north and northeasterly, and then head over eastern Cuba, over portions of the Bahamas, and then out sort of to sea near Bermuda, but as a much weaker storm at that point. So, again, the bad news today, it's creeping ashore, it's strengthening as it's coming ashore, but it will start to accelerate sort of as time goes on here. And this is a graphic that Eric and I made last night, so just kind of put it in perspective. These are some of the most powerful storms we know here in recent history. The Blizzard 78, Hurricane Bob, obviously Katrina. The central pressure of Melissa right now is way below most of those storms at 892. Again, even well below Katrina. Just goes to show how powerful a storm that really is right now. So it's, again, we have some stats here. Lowest central pressures in the Atlantic this is in history of record keeping. Melissa now.
Let's go back to the 1800s.
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, tied for third lowest central pressure at 892. And again, these are storms that are just sort of like infamous storms from way in the past. So just goes to show you just how unusual and how powerful this one is.
Yeah, I think, the last landfalling hurricane, I believe, was Hurricane Bob for New England. And that was, 30 years or so ago?
1991, yeah.
People still remember that storm system. I know people still remember the blizzard of '78 as well. I remember Superstorm Sandy when I was living in Philadelphia, and then obviously Hurricane Katrina that made landfall on the Gulf Coast. I remember what the preparation was like, and you have to think we're a developed nation, okay? And you have to also consider other nations that are not as developed as us. You have the before, you have the during, and you also have the after as well. And I was just a freshman in college when Hurricane Katrina happened. We had prolonged issues from that storm for months, and some years even years.
Yeah, right.
This will be a storm that's not only going to affect the people this week, today, tomorrow, but also weeks, months, and perhaps even years to come. So when you're talking about the effects from a storm like Hurricane Melissa, you're talking about wind damage, you're talking about flooding rains, you're talking about heavy rains that could also lead to some mudslides in some of the mountains, also the hill terrain there in Jamaica as well. And earlier this morning I was looking up, a part of their economy is based on tourism. At least a third of it based on tourism as well. So they're going to be severely impacted from a monetary standpoint and also from a physical standpoint at the very baseline of just living.
That's right.
On the island.
Yeah, I know this happened. Puerto Rico had a similar instance several years back. We're devastated. And again, like you said, it's not just for that day or that month. It's really years. You're trying to get the infrastructure back. These places aren't built. The building codes there are much different than they are maybe here, obviously in Miami, places like that. So not to say that 185-mile-an-hour winds, it's tough to sustain any sort of structure at that level. But yeah, the devastation over parts of especially western Jamaica, as you can see, this is sort of the projected wind forecast. That white right around the center there are winds well in excess of 100 miles an hour, again, going right over western parts of Jamaica and then eastern parts of Cuba. Now, by the time it gets to the Bahamas, probably a Cat maybe 2 storm, still a very impressive storm, but certainly nothing like what it was down in Jamaica. And then making one final brush just to the west of Bermuda a couple days from now.
Oh, Bermuda has definitely been in the talks as well in the past couple months or so with the tropics as well. So they're still going to be dealing with it here, at least down there. Now let's talk about the windfall, at least wind gust forecast, friends. We gave for an example Black River earlier. Now, when you're talking about the winds of the eye wall, you normally get these winds just ramping up. They're climbing severely until you get to the eye wall, and then they get back calm. And then you have to deal with the other side of the eye wall, and they just race right back up again. And a lot of people mistake, oh, the storm system is past. Actually, no, you're just right in the eye. You still got to deal with the other side of the storm. So as Melissa moves onshore, it makes that landfall there. We are expecting the wind gust to remain a bit more elevated until it safely passes. And I use safely very loosely there when we're talking about such a devastating and sizable and highly impactful storm like this. The winds are going to remain elevated in a dangerous territory, let's say over the next 6 to 7 hours before they start to get a little bit of reprieve and perhaps a little bit of relief. And then nighttime falls, and then they wake up tomorrow with a clearer focus on exactly what just happened.
Yeah, going through and the eye of a hurricane is one of the most unique experiences, certainly one that you would rather not experience. I remember in 1985, this is dating me a little bit, but Hurricane Gloria went right over Metro West, right over my house. I remember, there were winds gusting 80, 100 miles an hour. Then all of a sudden, the birds are flying, the sky is blue, and it's just that one of the most sort of the contrast of going from just damaging, devastating winds to a calm, and then like you said, entering the other end of the eye wall, and the winds are going the other way. It's one of nature's kind of craziest and most harrowing experiences. I just put this graphic together just to show you get an idea of how sizable the wind field is. If the eye of this storm as currently constituted were over Boston, the hurricane winds extend out about 30 miles from the center. So basically anywhere from, say, up to about southern New Hampshire to central Massachusetts down to about Plymouth. That's the size of the hurricane force winds right now, about 30 miles out. Now the tropical storm force winds extend out some 200 miles. So again, you take the current Melissa, you put her eye over Boston, we'd be feeling tropical storm force winds all the way up to the the Canadian border down to New York City. So It's one of the more sizable hurricanes. We certainly have had bigger hurricanes, but just to give you an idea of sort of the size and the breadth of the wind field right now.
And now imagine how densely populated we are here in New England,
right.
especially in the Boston area. So most of the Boston area will be under the force of these hurricane force winds. Let's talk about not only Melissa, but also we have another storm moving into our area beginning tomorrow through the end of the week. That is going to be a coastal storm system, famed nor'easter potentially moving into our area here, beginning overnight tonight, thickening the clouds, but also allowing for rain showers to ramp up. And it's pretty much kind of been a bit of a wet October. We're now, I think, 0.78 in terms of a surplus for the month of October. We're possibly going to end October on a wet note as well.
Sure looks that way, yeah. And you can sort of make the connection here. There's a bit of a tropical connection with Melissa down there. You can see the rainfall sort of extending from New England all the way down south. So I do think there's a potential for some of the energy from Melissa to sort of get sucked up into this system and maybe give us a couple torrential downpours Thursday night. The rainfall amounts have kind of come down a little bit since yesterday. Yesterday, we were looking at 1 to 3 inches of rain. Today, a lot of the models are closer to an inch or so. But nonetheless, Thursday night, we could definitely get a couple of downpours. And then the backside of this storm, you can see it sort of gets wrapped up in near Nova Scotia, and just a whole bunch of wind comes down on the backside of this thing for Friday.
I always say the backside can be a little bit hairy back there.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little sketchy. This is the potential rainfall here, friends. Some areas are just going to be mainly just dealing with some crumbs. Some areas that pick up a little bit more. As you can see, the Cape and the Islands are likely going to be around an inch, inch and a quarter or so. So we're doing our best to kind of put a dent in the drought monitor here. But what we believe and what we are forecasting for you is to have a seemingly drier trick-or-treat forecast by Friday night. So we'll begin Friday morning with some lingering spot showers here and there, not widespread and certainly not heavy. But cloud cover will likely linger throughout our Friday. It's going to be definitely feeling like the fall feels outside, those raw and untraditional sort of feels there. But we should be dry by the time the trick-or-treaters get ready to head out in their famed costumes, looking great. And by 6 p.m., still expecting to be around the lower 50s before that chilly air kind of moves in for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, just a little gusty. I'd say really the only downside this Halloween was we will have a gusty wind, 25 to 35 miles an hour around trick-or-treat time. So, you know, shouldn't be too big of a concern. If you have Halloween decorations outside, you might want to just make sure that they're firmly secured into the ground. And one last thing, I threw this in here. A lot of folks, I surprised my family last night by saying, do you realize we're turning the clocks back this weekend? What? Sunset's going to be at 4:36 on Sunday.
I think for us early risers, you know, we come in at 4 a.m. I think we'll actually like it. So we definitely get an extra hour of sleep. But this means that we are definitely going to be trimming back daylight. It already starts to appear like, you know, the sun is setting at 2:33 in the afternoon now.
Hibernation, the winter hibernation begins this weekend. There you go. There's Jason 7-day. Again, looks like a couple sort of mainly cloudy days coming up before that heavier rain Thursday night, but at least the weekend's looking pretty decent, albeit a little bit windy.
Oh, she looks really good. We got it mid to upper 50s on Saturday here, friends. This is going to actually be near average, and we'll start to trend a little bit backwards there once we get to Sunday in the daytime. Now, notice by Sunday morning, though, we're going to be down to near freezing, certainly in the suburbs area, metro west of Boston. Some areas in and around the city will likely be in the upper 30s here and there, but it's going to be a pretty chilly start to our Sunday morning, as we're going to get an extra hour of sleep. Yay! And then by Monday, another spot shower chance back in the forecast. So again, we got some sort of kind of like unsettled weather kind of smashing our 7-day, but it's not a deluge. It's not going to be a washout by any means, but definitely looks like fall is here in a big way.
It sure is, yeah. And we'll obviously continue to monitor the situation down there in Jamaica. Jason's going to have an update at noon. Eric will be on this evening. The eye wall, again, northern eye wall just crossing over now, so it's going to be a long day, unfortunately, down there in parts of Jamaica, but we'll definitely keep an eye on it, keep you updated.
I'll see you guys at noon. Have a great day.